Good evening, everybody. I trust you've had a fruitful day. I do not say happy. I'm sure it has been a happy one for you. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Buddha, the blessed, noble, and fully self-awakened one. So we're making our way through this very rich discourse, actually. So we'll have to just do a little quick revision on it. So it starts off, remember, with this ex-king, Pukasati. And, you know, he's from that kingdom up there, Takasila, with its famous monastery, Taxila, at Taxila, the capital. And it's in north of present-day Pakistan, right up there. And it's been going since 1000 BCE, although it obviously doesn't exist anymore. Now, the rather touching thing about this discourse is that the Buddha, one way or another, found out about Pukasati. Perhaps he had heard from Bimbisara that this ex-king was looking for him, was searching for him to ordain. Perhaps he did have this wonderful clairvoyance where he could actually contact people who were searching for him, that sort of contact. Remember that often we will think of somebody and we'll get a phone call from them, or we'll find something terrible has happened to them. So there is that communication at a certain level, and somebody who's you know, well attained, especially in concentration exercises, has that sort of power. And Pukasati is addressed by him. And the discourse is basically about these four things: how not to neglect wisdom, how to preserve the truth, how to cultivate relinquishment, and how to train in peace. Most of it is about this wisdom. And he starts off by introducing us, first of all, to the six elements, only to get us into the dependent origination, about contact, about feeling, and about the reaction to feeling, our indulgence in what is pleasant, aversion, fear to what is unpleasant, and basically an indifference to what is neutral, perhaps not even noticing it. And within all that, there is this phrase: this is not me, it's not mine, and it's not myself. So there's also that understanding about it. And then he comes back to the six great elements. Remember, here we've included space and consciousness. And finally, it is, where do we stop? Oh, yes. And then it was through the practice of understanding this, taking it into, let's have a look now. That's right. Taking it to the point where equanimity, not indifference. So now there's been a purification of the heart, and we've come to equanimity. And if you remember, supposing a skilled goldsmith and his apprentice were to prepare a furnace, heat up the crucible, take some gold with tongs, and put them in the crucible from time to time, blow on it, sprinkle water on it, and just look upon it, the gold would become refined, well refined, faultless, rid of dross, malleable, wieldy, and radiant. And whatever kind of ornament you wish to make, it would serve his purpose. So too, then there remains only equanimity, right? This wonderful state of contentment and equanimity, purified, bright, malleable, wieldy, and radiant, at ease with the way things are. And so with that now, the Buddha says that he can, because this Pukasati is obviously very good at concentration. He sat up all night with the Buddha. So he says you can enter into the more refined jhanas, these arupa jhanas, which are basically not based on any object of mind, enter into an infinity of space, an infinity of consciousness, an infinity of nothingness. Nothing is there, and even that point where there is nothing to perceive, and yet there is perception. And because of this, he does not cling to any condition, because first of all, there's a danger in such things, because you can be there for a very long time. It's still conditioned. It's not the end of suffering. And he does not form any condition or generate any volition tending towards being or non-being. In other words, he's let go of the idea of becoming and not becoming. That not becoming, of course, is getting rid of oneself. And he does not cling to anything in this world. And when he is not agitated, so he does not cling to anything in this world. When he does not cling, he's not agitated. When he is not agitated, he personally attains nibbana, and he understands birth is destroyed, the holy life is lived, what had to be done has been done. There's no more coming into a state of becoming. And now he goes through this pleasant feeling, and of course when it comes to painful feeling, there's no indulgence with it. When it comes to unpleasant feelings, when it comes to painful feelings, there is no holding on to it, wanting to get rid of it. And when it's painful or when it's neutral feeling, there's no holding, there's no intention to delight in it. In other words, he's found that position that we in our practice attain when we are just observing, just watching, just feeling. We're just aloof from the whole psychophysical organism manifesting into our awareness. So he feels non-attached with these feelings, and even feeling the terminating with the body. When he feels a feeling terminating with the body, he understands a feeling terminating with the body. In other words, it's just in the body. And when he feels a feeling terminating with life, in other words, as he's approaching death, that's all he feels. He does not delight in it. He's not averse to it or anything. And he becomes cool right there. So that's just another word to explain somebody who's fully liberated. He remains cool. I suppose even in the modern idiom of that's cool, you know, you're up above, aloof, and not concerned, not worried, etc. Just as an oil lamp burns dependent on oil and a wick, and when the oil and wick are used up, if it does not get any more fuel, it is extinguished from the lack of fuel. So too, when he feels a feeling terminating with the body, terminating with life, he understands that this is what is happening. On the dissolution of the body, with the ending of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, while becoming cool right there. So what is understood is that so long as somebody who's fully liberated remains in this life, he still has the consequences of a body, the pain of it, the death of it, etc. And when this drops away, then he is completely liberated. He's also liberated from the consequences of leftovers in his mind. These are called traces, vasana. So there's still, little bits of greed, little bits of hatred and stuff come up, but they're, as it were, just zipping through the mind. There's no clutching at them. There's no holding onto them. That's where the liberation is. And therefore, the Buddha says he has found the supreme foundation of wisdom. And his deliverance, being founded upon this truth, is unshakable. For that is false, which is of a deceptive nature. And that is true, which is of an undeceptive nature, which is nibbana. So in other words, you can't be deceived by nibbana. You can't. It doesn't deceive you. You can, of course, deceive yourself. You can think you've attained it, but once you've actually experienced nibbana, then it's you can't deny it. It's something so different from everything else we've experienced that it remains as a truthful personal experience. So he possesses this supreme foundation of truth. Normally, when he was ignorant, he acquired and developed attachments. So the attachments are to the five khandhas, the psychophysical organism, to all the defilements we're attached to our little sins, to all our habits, we're attached to our habits, and of course, there's always that sensual pleasure. And all that has been relinquished, all that has gone now as a place where there's any happiness to be found. And this is namely the supreme noble relinquishment. When he was ignorant, he experienced covetousness, desire, and indulgence, but now he's abandoned them, cut them off, made them like a palm stump. So when you cut off the frond at the top of a palm stump, that's the end of it, really. It can't grow again. So it's the same way with all the rest of the hindrances. And therefore, that person possesses the supreme foundation of peace. Okay? So this is what the Buddha is talking to when he says, don't neglect the wisdom. In other words, work at really trying to understand the way things are. And that once you understood anything, actually receive it as the truth, as your personal truth. Hold on to it. And then to continuously cultivate this letting go of what we know is actually doing us harm. And finally, to train that way towards peace. So in such a person, the tides of conceiving, tides, these are the ogre, the floods, or as we had them very early on in our talks, the asava, the taints, the oozings. They do not sweep over such a person. They no longer sweep over a sage at peace. And all the conceiving is disappeared. And what the Buddha means by conceiving is this: I am this, I shall be, I shall not be, I shall be possessed of this, I shall be formless, I shall be percipient, I shall be neither percipient nor non-percipient. So conceiving, he says, based upon ignorance, remember, is a disease, a tumor, a dart. By overcoming all these conceivings, the sage is at peace. The sage at peace is not born, does not age, does not die. He's not shaken and does not yearn. For there's nothing present in him by which he might be born. Not being born, how could he age? Not aging, how could he die? Not dying, how could he be shaken? How could he be fearful? Not being shaken, how could he yearn for anything? So this is the Arahat, you see, fully liberated. Now, at this point, Pukusati suddenly realizes that perhaps this is the Buddha. Now, the conversation here is a bit difficult to accept, but we'll go through it anyway. He suddenly realizes that, in fact, this is the Buddha, the sublime one, the fully enlightened one. And he rose and arranged his upper robe over his shoulder and bowed to the Buddha. A transgression overcame me, in that, like a fool, confused and blundering, I presumed to address the Blessed One as friend. So in the order, you address somebody below you as abuso, friend, and they address you as Bante. Which means venerable, reverend. Of course, I personally prefer adorable. Yes. Surely, Bhikkhu, it says the Buddha, a transgression overcame you, in that, like a fool, confused and blundering, you presume to address me as a friend. But since your transgression as such, but since you see your transgression as such and make amends in accordance with the Dharma, we forgive you. For it is growth in the noble one's discipline when one sees one's transgression as such, makes amends in accordance with the Dhamma, and undertakes to restrain in the future. Now that all seems a little bit tough, doesn't it? Because, you know, it's not as though he knew the Buddha and then addressed him wrongly. He didn't know at all, so it's hardly blamable. And I think what happened originally probably is that he suddenly realized and asked, are you the Buddha? Are you the Blessed One? Are you Gautama? And when he said yes, he was sort of taken aback, you see. And he said, oh, I'm sorry for addressing you. I said, no. The Buddha said, no worries, no problem. I'm reminded of an occasion when a young boy, for some reason, needed cheering. I can't remember what the reasons were, but what they thought they would do was invite David Beckham to come because he was the boy's big hero. Now, when David Beckham turned up, this boy couldn't handle it. He suddenly burst into tears, and everybody had to give him a hug. So it might have been like this with Pukkasati, when he suddenly realizes the person in front of him is the person whom he has taken refuge in his heart. And now, of course, he wants to take the full ordination. So the Buddha says to him, are your bowl and robes complete? Now, when you get ordained, you need these requisites. You need your 3 robes. You need a belt. You need your alms bowl. You need a razor for shaving, a needle for mending your clothes, and a water strainer. If you take water in the wild, you're supposed to strain it just in case you don't swallow creatures. So he said, no, he said, I've not got them complete. So he says, I cannot give you full ordination until you've got your requisites complete. Anyway, Pukkasati, having delighted and rejoiced in the Blessed One's words, rose from his seat, and after paying homage to the Blessed One, keeping him on his right, he departed in search of bowl, robes, and requisites. Then while the Venerable Pukkasati was searching for a bowl and robes, a stray cow killed him. What a bit of bad. Well, it's not such a bad luck, because as we see now, later on, a number of monks went to the Blessed One and paying homage, etc. They asked, after your brief instruction to him, he died. What is his destination? What is his future course? And the Buddha replies, the clansman Pukkasati was wise. He practiced in accordance with the Dharma and did not trouble me with interpretation of the Dharma. In other words, didn't argue with him. So obviously people love to get into a discussion and even argument with the Buddha. With the destruction of the 5 lower fetters, right there while he was talking to him, the clansman Pukkasati has reappeared spontaneously in the pure abodes. So that's the place you go to when you are a non-returner, right? You're not going to come back here as a human being. And he will attain final nibbana there without returning to this world. That is what the Blessed One said. The bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So here we have, I think, is a rather touching story. It's a bit unfortunate he got killed by a cow. He's not the only one in the scriptures who gets killed by cows. So they must have been pretty fierce in those days. That's the only way I can understand it, really. So there we have Pukkasati, just in a long discourse, becoming a non-returner. So that gives us hope. So I hope you found this discourse encouraging, and that you will continue with your practice until you are fully liberated sooner rather than later. So do a bit of practice.